from what we heard from Thai consumers, for millennial consumers, most of them spent a significant amount of time online prior to their purchase, searching glasses, searching trends, trying to figure out what looked the best and would be hip enough for them to actually wear. And then they would go into stores to try to find that fit that would suit them. And I think that's one of the key differentiators is they go online and then come into stores. For the US, I think a lot of the times, for some consumers, like myself in particular, I could do the online, but I want that sort of hands-on finalization approach where I could see the frames online, but then go in, try them on, get the distance between my eyes measured professionally so that I don't have, especially if I'm wearing glasses all day, my eyes messing up when I'm using them for a long period of time. But some may use the glasses more casually, and for them, the eyeglasses online is a much easier and simpler experience where, if their eye distance is off slightly, it won't really matter for them.
Means that no matter what, consumer they still need to visit an optical store to purchase a pair of glasses.
I think people are becoming better at accepting the online experience, and I think the other key, which is coming down the road, is that retention piece. So if I've had my glasses measured and my eye distance measured once at Warby Parker, I now feel comfortable that they know that distance and can use that in the future. So I don't need to go back into a store to update my purchase the next time, and I can simply buy online.
And I would offer, perhaps, moving to a purely online model, you are more likely to see increased price competition. In the US, there's a company called Zenni Optical, and it's purely online, and it's largely for extremely price-sensitive consumers because there's not an element of high-touch service. It's more likely that that space is going to be competed down to very low price, where the low-cost producer has more of the advantage.
And if you think about who that customer is, that's the customer, like Jason was saying, that doesn't rely on their glasses as much, that isn't using it all day, every day, that the glasses isn't an integral part of their life. And so we think that with Better Vision's kind of technical knowledge and service aspect, that price-sensitive customer that doesn't rely on glasses may not necessarily be Better Vision's target customer, even among millennials.
How many days have you ramped up? So how long?
So we want about 1 week, exactly today, 1 week, yeah. So we did some pre-work in the United States, interviewing customers, visiting stores, but yeah, we've just been here for a week.
Personally, which store would you rather shop?
I think that's a competitive question for us.
I think we all want to.
Yeah, that last store that we visited in the airport here was like absolutely beautiful. But a lot of tier 1, tier 2 locations were fabulous. To your question about like how long we've been here for, I think Andrew made this point earlier. Ideally, when we showed you that diagram of the thought process, ideally we would have liked to spend more time in the experimentation phase, more time speaking to customers and seeing how they receive the idea. That's part of why we provided this prototype slide on recommendations. Of course, we wouldn't recommend that you right away spend all this capital to go install the system in every store. That would be silly. If we would have had more time, we would have liked to, in a very first, do more service, and then in a very limited fashion, start implementing them in specific stores to see if it's working, and then roll it out if it's more successful.
And I think one more thing I'd say, impressions in your stores as we visited them. We didn't really know what to expect before we got here, and we've actually been extremely impressed. If you go to your renovated tier 1, tier 2 stores, you asked about lens crafters earlier. Your stores, your tier 1 stores, are a significantly nicer and more pleasant experience than lens crafters in the US. So we were very impressed. And I think the average US consumer walking into one of your tier 1 stores would be very impressed and find it like a very pleasant shopping experience. I think you guys, the renovations you've done, we were very impressed with.
Toe did a nice bait and switch with us by taking us to the tier 3 stores first, and showing us those, and then was like, and then there's a tier 1 store. Very different, but it was a fun experience.
Are there any areas that you would like us strongly to reflect us?
So there are 2 areas. We really like our one idea of the light-up display, but there are 2 other areas that we thought might be quicker wins and things that you could work on. So the first one on the left-hand side is called inbound marketing, and this is where you offer education to consumers, and you leverage some of your core expertise in terms of your optical knowledge to get educational information out to the consumer. We found many millennials who weren't aware of how to think about their eyeglass purchase or different steps in that process, where if you had information that educated the consumer, that would raise awareness of the Better Vision brand and more likely attract consumers who have more optical needs to come to your store. So that was one idea that we thought would be very easy to understand and easy to implement to attract more consumers and raise awareness for the brand. The second one is a CRM system. We learned a little bit about your point of sale system and the work that you're doing to engage consumers over time. But we think there's a lot of opportunity to really roll that out in a much more comprehensive fashion. So from sending a follow-up a week later after someone purchases glasses to see how they are, to in a year's time sending them the latest style or the latest trend for that same pair of lenses, and being able to track their purchase history effectively over time to market to them more targetedly and really address, be able to put your product out there at the time of sale or at the time of need for the consumer. We think that the CRM system also would just enable you to create a lot of data, especially paired with a system where people can select the 5 lenses or push the 5 lenses that really fit them well. Being able to track that over time and encourage them to look at new trends or styles as they're relevant would be a much more valuable experience than simply sending a broad promotion for a specific type of lenses or frames. Yes. Oh, CRM, customer relationship management. That. Sorry.
I see a lot of you guys are from private equities. I just wanted to ask which type of models would be more attractive to investors without touching the financial performance.
What do you mean which type of?
Like the construction one, like home base or a brick and mortar.
I think so. I might be avoiding your question, so I apologize if I am. But I think the thing that really struck me about Better Vision and made me very attracted in the way that it's been established to date is the customer retention and the frequency of purchases of customers. We've seen customers. We spoke to one family who she came in with her husband. They had been coming to the same tier 2 store for 10 years now. They had moved away, they had gone, lived an hour away from that store at this point, and they had just brought their kids in to get their first pair of glasses. So that was that dedicated, loyal customer that you've had for so long and been able to retain. And that type of recurring customer is very valuable, especially when you've been so successful and can retain that customer for so long. I think the model of the store can position you better or worse for the future, but you have a really strong base on which to build. Is that somewhat?
I think we could.
Yeah, I guess speaking to the question, I think, as Jason said, you have a lot of core strengths. I think for investors, as they're thinking about companies, the future obviously is important to an investment. I think especially if you're thinking about millennials and where you're going to really see some of that growth coming from, having that blend between online and offline is critical. Actually, at my last investment firm, we were looking at a series of eyeglasses stores, and when we were thinking through our investment decision, seeing who captured that online to offline was a super key aspect. And that's part of what really excites me about Better Vision. I think you have all the ingredients for an excellent in-store experience, because that advantage that you have with the optometrist, that's a huge advantage and it's very difficult to replicate. I think you really need to work on more brand consistency and on more of a wow factor when people get into the store. Similar to in your tier 1 locations, you have a lot of that, but it needs to be consistent across the way all this has achieved. But when you think about the growth, right, like we're excited about what you're building online, and then the next step would just be to really merge that online with the offline stores. So to really create a model where people online pick whatever glasses they're excited about, and then are told, oh, go to, I don't know if you're familiar with Best Buy, the electronics retailer in the US. They do that, where you pick models online, and they tell you, oh, if you'd like to see what it's actually like, come into this location, we're holding it for you. That's exactly what you should be doing with your eyeglasses. And as an investor, I would really be looking for a company that manages that online, offline, and that at the same time has the medical expertise that you need to administer your glasses that you have as one. So it's just a matter of making it more consistent and the two left.
So I suppose you guys are suggesting that omni-channel would be the winning strategy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Can I share a crazy thought with you?
Yes, sure.
Far into the future,
Yes.
and this is just a hypothesis. I was interested to see that fewer Thai people seem to be wearing glasses than Americans. I thought that glasses would be a very fashion-forward accessory, but it doesn't seem to be that prevalent here in this country. And I talked with one consumer who had LASIK surgery, and she said that she was frustrated because of the humidity and the heat going in and out of buildings. They fog up. And so you have to wonder if the LASIK technology continues to improve and more consumers start to get LASIK surgery. Given your expertise and the strength that you have of your optical staff, could there be a future where you have a strength in LASIK surgery as a service to provide?
Any other questions? We have a number of other slides that we didn't go through here that are in the slide deck, so just for you to peruse a little bit.
I would like to know more, if you can share your idea with us. To be frank, I'm not that young anymore, so sometimes I don't really understand what the millennials thinking or why they do this and that. So maybe you can share with us what are the millennials' behavior when they want to buy something that we should bet on to improve our business.
Yes. You guys can build on this, but I think one thing that we noticed is that, and we sort of kind of walked through this, but that millennial customers like browsing online. That they follow, that, there are different types of millennial customers. There are millennial customers that like fashion. There are millennial customers that just want convenience and want functional. But millennial customers, I think on average, are more likely to go online, to browse Facebook or Pantip, look for recommendations, where's the best place to buy glasses, and then come into the online store. Which is kind of why we think omni-channel, especially for this customer segment, is going to be crucial, because they blend the two in their purchasing decisions.
So they browse internet to use it as a guideline for what they want to buy.
And also where they want to buy.
Where they want to buy.
So having that online presence is important to drive traffic into the in-store locations as well.
So what are their behavior when it comes to using a store, any store? They like to browse the store open sale without the seller to tell them, or they want to hear the staff to give them some recommendations.
Yeah.
I was surprised in my interviews to learn that most wanted to browse by themselves first. They wanted a staff member to be attentive to them. If they had a need, they could quickly access a staff member, but they did not generally like to be bothered when they were just walking around trying on frames. I think our team was a bit split on the concept of having glasses displayed behind a case, because then maybe it's a bit inconvenient to call a staff member over to open the case and try them on. However, we do understand that the presentation could be nice. There could be security reasons to have them behind glass. It's something to consider though.
Another area that relates to this like millennial way of thinking, and you guys let me know if you disagree, but I think part of why Warby was so successful in America and part of why Oakland I think is doing well here is that millennials really care about what it looks like on their face, and they really just care about what the glasses look like, more so than who made the glasses. The whole branding, knowing that it's Chanel, Gucci, whatever, is way, way less significant in this generation than is the actual look of the glasses. So people are very, very happy to buy house brands if it looks good. And that is something that Warby's playing to, and it's something that Olay is playing to also, because we have actually not seen their financial statements, but we would assume that house glasses, house brands are way more profitable for you than say like Gucci glasses, given that you don't have to pay anybody a margin and then control the economics, right? So knowing that when you like have your store layout, having more of an emphasis on what the glasses look like and carrying more of that in-house store inventory, that could be a very good strategy. You notice that you have some of these, in tier 1 locations, you don't really have any of the posters that you have in the tier 3 locations. That makes a lot of sense. I don't think it should be about drawing people into these big brand names. Rather, you should be creating something unique and special on your own. That is the house brand that at the same time is more profitable for you.
Any questions on that?
What are the range, the price range that those millennials that are willing to speak?
I think just having a range, right? What Gold Days does is they just show you like I think it goes from like 1,000 baht to like 5,000 baht, and they have a big range of everything, and then people can just different millennials have different incomes.
Have you noticed that some difference between the mall in the United States and the mall in Thailand? In the United States, you can find almost 2 or 3 optical shops in the whole mall.
Yeah.
On the contrary, if you walk into any of the shopping mall in Bangkok, you can find at least 10 or
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why it needs to be unique and like the one that's really special that people go to. You know how Smita was saying that there's some confusion.
I would like to you to note and make some comment on this, because in the United States we have at least 40 to 50% of people who need the glass
Sure.
and wear the glass, while in Thailand you can see at least only 10 or 15% people
Sure.
wearing the glass, but it's totally different and compared to the number of shops in the store in the mall.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say that, so this is something that definitely struck us and that we observed as we were going to the Thai malls. My guess would be, so I think we observed many of the Thai optical stores were less busy than some of the optical stores you might see in the United States. So I suspect it might partially be the case that the lower cost of providing the store experience in Thailand in terms of rent, labor, etc. Again, we haven't gotten into your financials, but I'm just speculating. That might enable like a profitable store with relatively less traffic. But look, this is something that definitely struck us, and over time, I think our guess would be that there will be consolidation. I think you guys obviously understand this market much better than we do, but given the number of stores and given how overlapping the offerings are, I would expect to see at some point you're going to consolidate and have a smaller number of stores, each with a more clearly distinct value proposition from the other stores in the same mall. But yes, you're absolutely right. It's a very clear difference between here and the United States.
I think the one thing I would add is we went to visit a promotion out of one of the tier 2 stores around t-shirts. That was go to the thank you slide. That was where we had this picture. We thought that was one really good way of attracting people to the store. I assume it wasn't super high cost to actually implement it, but it brought people to the store. It got some buzz around the store. And I thought it was a very effective way of attracting consumers and customers and making them more aware of Better Vision in that location versus in own days of the other optical retailers that were there. We also had fun making the t-shirts.
I know. You have seen our Facebook page. Any suggestions for us to use on our pages? Or maybe any other social medias?
Yeah, so we heard, I think there's two questions there. One, how can we improve the Facebook page? And then two, are there other channels to use? So looking at the Facebook page, we think there's a lot more room for incorporating kind of an individual customer's feedback, or that's kind of where the idea of the professional headshot comes from. If you could share actual quotes or experiences, highlight current customers that came into the store and maybe a great relationship or interaction that they have with an individual sales staff, that would make, I think, the page feel more personal. So right now it seems like there's an overall Better Vision page, and then there are separate local branch pages. So maybe even more consistency among the pages, as well as highlighting personal stories on those pages, I think would be more effective. To the second question of which channels to use, we heard that apart from Facebook, people use other types of social media, including Instagram. Line was a really important one. And then we also had one interview where someone mentioned something called PanTip, which they use to kind of search for where to buy glasses and that sort of thing. So there are definitely other areas to expand into other channels that people use.
I think that the only thing I would add to that is our key insight number 3 around promotions. We really like the idea of leveraging promotions to create value for Better Vision. So rather than just using a promotion to incentivize a sale, can you use a promotion to drive someone to share their experience with friends? And we thought that would be a really exciting way to leverage that promotion to drive value.
I have another last question. Recently, we have changed all the strategy by remove all the discount, annual discount sign from the shop, and try to build up what we call the value for money for the customer, and then try to educate the customer, offering them the best of the value of the product that their money can buy. So will that be a good direction toward the consumer? From your experience that you have interviewed all those customers, or will that be any wrong direction?
So I think the answer is partially a little different a little bit by consumer, right? So you'll have some consumers that are very price motivated and will just look for the cheapest option, especially when you have the exact same frames being sold in different stores. I think there are some consumers that are less price sensitive that will pay a little bit of a premium if you can offer a really differentiated store experience. But I would say it has to be, the experience can't be a little bit better than a competitor. It has to be significantly better than a competitor, such that it's a visible difference in the store experience. And that, I think, is a little bit of what we were trying to get out with some of our brainstorming is how do we make the in-store experience not just a little better than competitors, but drastically something totally different that you can't get anywhere else. I think that's really the key if you want to have a little bit of a price break.
If I understood correctly, the part of the question centered around basically removing the discount sites. I personally, I thought that worked really, really well. Like it was interesting seeing how in modern optical, the price range of the glasses that we sold was exactly the same price range as the glasses that we had sold in your type 3 location, but you had the discount sites everywhere versus they couldn't. So when Phil and I visited, we both felt like the modern optical store looked more expensive, it looked more upscale, even though it was the same price. So I think your point around starting to remove some of these discount signs, I personally really liked it, and I felt like it made the store feel nicer and more luxurious.
Don't be afraid to be unique. I think was our biggest takeaway.
Do you think it's a good idea if a customer walks in, I straight away ask what is your budget to help them recommend us?
Well, I think that's sort of like honestly a bit of the opposite of what we've seen in our customer interviews. I think uniformly, almost anybody we spoke to, they appreciated coming in, being able to look on their own. That's part of why they felt strongly that not having the glasses in a display case is valuable. People want to look around on their own. They want to touch the glasses, feel the glasses, try them on. And then at the same time, there comes a specific point where they need help because they're not sure what to do. At that point, they want to make sure that there's a sales associate very, very close and present. So from just the conversations, it seems like perhaps the most successful approach would be to have a sales associate, like towards the front of the store, just politely greeting a customer, telling them if you need anything, I'm here. Then letting the customer go off on their own, but closely watching the customer, so that the second the customer needs help, the sales associate is available to provide.
I guess to directly answer the budget question, I don't think it makes sense to directly upfront ask for budget. I think what I would suggest is what the sales staff currently do is understand where the person is focusing and then direct them to other similarly priced lenses rather than having to have that conversation upfront.
I think we've observed there's some flexibility in the budgets, right? So you might come in thinking you're going to spend 3,000 baht and you actually end up spending maybe 4,000 or 5,000 baht. You probably don't end up spending 10,000 baht, so there's some limit to that. But I think I would definitely agree with Jason that you want to preserve some of that upselling ability to get those customers who will end up spending a little bit more maybe than they thought they would come here.
Which is why kind of on that iPad that we showed, we think what's more important is kind of low, medium, high, as opposed to what's your numeric budget.
How about contact lens and eyeglasses for using contact lens and eyeglasses?
So in the US, you can buy both contact lenses and eyeglasses together, whereas that seems to be different in Thailand. It seems like there are separate purchasing processes. For the purposes of this project, we focused on eyeglasses, but in the US, it's a little bit different because the prescription is different and the way they're bought is usually, you can bundle them, which you can't, it sounds like, here in the US, or here in Thailand. Yeah.
I'm actually late for this one, so I'm sorry, but I read the deck and I mainly agree with your findings regarding millennials and stuff, but given the Thai market is kind of shifting, the demographic is really shifting towards the aging society, and that's a big chunk of the market that we perhaps as Better Vision are not already capturing majority of it yet, and that's where the biggest market is concentrated in. Any recommendation or any suggestion from your kind of 1 week study, particularly on this market segment?
So I think the thing that we would emphasize for this consumer is really trying to emphasize the expertise of the staff and the opticians that are in the store, and trying to drive that, because I think for many of the consumers that have been customers of eyeglasses, especially the ones that have, are older at this point, a lot of them are Better Vision customers from what we understand, and feel loyal to the brand and have been retained over many years.
But other than customers that we have retained over the years, let's say those who haven't even heard of Better Vision, how do we attract them? I mean, for millennials, it's quite easy, right? Make our online presence kind of more widely available, accessible. But for the group, like the old people, it's just kind of difficult, and I think this is something that we are too sophisticated. Somehow it's perhaps too sophisticated for us to crack. But any recommendation or anything that you perhaps see in the US that we can sort of transfer that knowledge and kind of implement here?
So that's a really good question, and this may be kind of not really answering the question, so feel free to kind of push back. So our, I guess, view would be, and I think we've seen certain brands like Nike tend to take this view that, if you are a more younger, hip brand, then and you get millennial customers early, they will age into that bracket, and that, in terms of like your customer acquisition costs, probably lower there, and then they will become your customers for life. In terms of like how to specifically get new old customers, is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
So I actually think that's Jason, do you want to speak to that? I think that's actually a question for Better Vision. I mean, we've seen that Better Vision does cater to different types of customers, but do you want to be everything to everybody? At some point, there needs to be a strategy where you kind of take a stance on what is the brand image and the value proposition that we're going for. And if that is to attract millennial customers, and we maybe have different views on that, you need to lean into that strategy. It can be really challenging if the strategy is do everything for everyone.
I think the one interesting parallel that I might draw for that type of consumer is in the US there's a senior care facility called A Place for Mom, and they are effectively marketing to adults that want to take their mothers to that facility to help care for them. So trying to market to not the oldest segment, but that level in between, and trying to, help mom see while she drives, or something to that effect, where you target the sort of middle age that might be willing to bring in the older consumer with them to have that eyeglass purchasing experience. Might be one way to think about, trying to attract a customer who isn't on Facebook through a relative that's on Facebook, or something to that effect.
It seems like going to malls and shopping tends to be part of the culture. So I think that's where kind of our idea of maybe utilizing the sales staff a little bit better and advertising and promoting that there are free cleanings. So if there is someone that's elderly and walking by, that they can actually utilize this service. Maybe there's a nice place to sit right in front of this, at the front of the store, where they can get their glasses cleaned. So something that's maybe a little, that just kind of like is the next step that builds on assets that Better Vision already has.
At the same time, I do think it's worth noting that almost uniformly, when we ask young customers who are customers, why are you going to Better Vision, they said that the image for them is that it is an old-fashioned brand focused on older people, right? So I think as a company, you have to think about whether you really care about attracting millennial customers. Maybe the answer is that you're having in the older segment, and that you're not interested in attracting millennials. If you are interested in attracting millennials, to Smila's point, I think it is very difficult to try to be everything to everyone. And I think you want to pick one segment and focus on doing really well there as it relates to your image. The older segment, I think you're capturing a lot of it. I personally wouldn't have a certain marketing effort around that, because I just don't see how, especially given the image you already have, I don't see how that can work successfully in parallel with the millennial marketing strategy.
So if you really want to capture millennials,
it's an interesting idea. As you well know, you already, in the minds of consumers, effectively have two brands, Howin and Better Vision. You could take one of those and rebrand towards a younger consumer base and keep one of them focused on what you do very well, serving families. Because I think this family segment is attractive. If children, we talked to several younger people who shop at Better Vision because their parents have shopped at Better Vision. So that's attractive if you can attract the whole family to the experience.
I think we're pretty aligned on that, and I think the difficulty that we have with completely separating anything is the possibility of losing the retained customers that you have, and so that sort of shift is something to really think about. Oh, sorry. I think my computer turned off. And yes. You couldn't do that in store. Yeah.
Sorry. I apologize. I should have been more clear. I do not recommend that you do that right now.
Yeah.
Sure. Understood. Yes, thank you.
Are there any local stores, yes, or anywhere already
We do not know of a competitor who's doing this.
I think the thing that I would say is a lot of online competitors allow you to filter using certain criteria to narrow down your selection. And so we wanted to take that with the in-store experience a step further by actually illuminating and helping people with the selection piece in the store.
And I think I'll say there are no optimal stores doing exactly what we propose, at least to our knowledge. But there are a lot of stores that are taking the principles of what Jason just said, of taking what consumers like and have gotten used to about the online experience and trying to replicate it in store. Like Amazon, for example, has opened a small set of brick and mortar stores in the United States that they've tried to make feel very similar to their online experience. So they have things like they'll have online customer reviews displayed next to the products. The way they curate the products is very similar to the way they do like the Amazon recommended products online. And so I think there are a lot of retailers thinking about the spirit of this question, which is customers have gotten used to a certain way of shopping online and they like the benefits of that. Is there a way to offer those same benefits in an in-store experience? I think the spirit of that is what we were trying to accomplish. Well, thank you all so much for listening to our presentation today, and more broadly, thank you guys for partnering with us during our time in Thailand. We've really enjoyed working with you. Toe in particular, you have been phenomenal. You have been such a supportive partner. We couldn't have asked for a better person to work with. Prinda has been fantastic as well as Pocky. So thank you all so much for making our time in Thailand so rewarding. I really, really enjoyed working with you. We have a very, very small gift for you guys as well from HBS that we'd love to give you as well. I think maybe.
Thank you very much.
We actually take all the valuable content that I'm given to us, and it will be continue using this organ or operate whatever you use. And thank you, really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
มันปิดไม่ได้ทันทีครับมันปิดไม่ได้ทันทีครับบอกเลยจ้าอย่างเงี้ยจะรอสักครู่
Wow. Yeah, so it's cool.
That's pretty impressive.
Oh, definitely.